My name is Eren. I started a company called Udemy. I will tell the story of Udemy a little bit so it gives context. I studied computer science in Ankara and mathematics. And I am my co-founders. We were in Turkey around 2007. And we decided to start a company which would be a platform for anybody who wants to teach online. And the real inspiration comes from my personal background. I was born in a village school in southeast part of Turkey. So just my primary school was like one room, one teacher who would rotate between different grades, and like 80% of the time, so you would have no teacher, so you are supposed to learn by yourself. To my like later, I was really good at mathematics, but there was really nowhere to go. But later on in my life, so my sister was going to college, so my parents had to buy a computer for her, and I started finding math websites, forums, and IRC channels where people were discussing tough mathematical problems, and I started self-teaching myself mathematics. And long story short, I ended up winning a gold medal in Turkey's national math Olympiads and a silver medal in international math Olympiads, which was like a big success story because, not because it's particularly important, but because I was able to do it like almost completely by self-teaching myself over using internet. So that was kind of the early inspiration. So you could use internet as your primary learning destination, and that was actually creating a play field that didn't exist before. But later on in my life, so I always thought about that idea, like that was really internal to me. Even in college, I pretty much didn't go to any school. So I think if you collect all the hours I attended school, it should be like 50 or 60 hours total throughout the 4 years. Because internet was good enough to learn anything you want to learn. We started the company for the first time. It was last year in the college. I started with my co-founder, Oktay. Our first company wasn't an education company, so I was really kind of excited about the graphic programming and 3D engines, so we built a 3D simulation company in the last year of the college. It was fun. It was kind of technically challenging subject. It was just not like a fun business. We did it for a little while, but we realized like working for the construction companies for 3D simulations wasn't a fun thing to do. So, and later on we had some other projects, and one of them was an education project, and it really kind of triggered my real passion because I always, as I said, I thought like internet could be people's primary learning place. Why don't we build a company around it? So initially we were building a software which was going to be a live education tool. So we worked with the R&D center. We built a software for them. We got some money from them. It was like a small amount of money, but later on, like our real kind of passion started because we said, okay, what if we take all of this software we built, which was like $50,000 per license, and we made them completely free and gave it to anybody on the internet who wanted to teach something. So we actually didn't know the market. We had no idea. I have presentations from my early days of the company. It's kind of really funny. I could actually show this and we could make fun of it together. But it was a very naive idea. Like why wouldn't we give it to everybody and more people could teach, and that would be more value for the world. So we started the company. We built a product for a year, stuffed it with a lot of advanced features. So even if before we launched the product, it had a third-party development environment and API and all the kind of fancy, technically hard stuff. But we launched the product, and 2 weeks later, it was very clear that wouldn't work. So there were 3 main problems. One is the infrastructure, video streaming. It was still not good enough. It was very expensive, and still it would take 10 minutes for people to set up their microphone and cameras to learn live. Second was Turkey wasn't the right place to do that. By the time we launched it, we were getting a little bit more technical savvy because to fund the company, what I was doing was I was working at night for Silicon Valley companies, for 10 hours at night. I would get paid a good full-time salary. Then I would actually distribute that salary to 5 people in the office. So during the day, I would work with our normal team to build Udemy. While doing it, we got kind of savvy about how businesses work. And one thing we realized was if you want to start a marketplace, you have to start in the place where you're the highest density of the influential users. So this is true for Twitter, LinkedIn, or Quora. It was true for Udemy too. We had to be in the place where most of the influential teachers were located. So that would be Silicon Valley. So we realized Turkey wasn't the right place to start that company. And the third was live was the wrong modality, because when you have a network business, usually there's a huge chicken and egg problem. If you don't have any instructors, why would students come? If you don't have any students, why would instructors come teach on your site? And doing this live was actually making it significantly even harder. So that's the reason there hasn't been any live education marketplace. All of the trials have failed, including Google Help Us, which is another fail. So we realized that wasn't the right model. We had to shut down the company here. I moved over to Silicon Valley, and we lost 3-4. I started I joined a startup called SpeedDate as they're one of the first employees. So we learned about growth and how to acquire users and kind of a little bit about how Silicon Valley companies worked. And 4 years after SpeedDate, SpeedDate was doing pretty well, but I was still passionate about Udemy. So we decided to really try Udemy. And my co-founder had come to US, San Francisco already, and we brought a lot of our old engineers to San Francisco, to Silicon Valley. And we started reworking, we rebuilt Udemy from ground up to be an on-demand learning platform. And initially, we were trying to raise money because if we could raise money, then we could go full-time on Udemy. Otherwise, we were limited by the visa stuff in the United States. So we built the product again. We tried to raise money. We got maybe 60 investors turning us down. So we said, okay, maybe we have to build the product. So we built the product, launched it. We tried to raise money again. Again, a lot of no's, so. And you just imagine that moment. So we did try this in Turkey, shut it down. We gave up once. 3-4 years passed. And finally, we got the motivation to start again. And then still, all these smart entrepreneurs who had already started billion-dollar companies, or investors who have backed amazing companies, they all said oh, this is not going to work, right? And they were pretty smart criticism. Most important criticism was content would eventually be free everywhere, because the theory goes that as a system becomes more efficient, the cost of a product comes closer to the cost of production. And if you are delivering online content, the cost of delivery is pretty much zero. Cost of production gets close to zero as your scale goes up. So these very super smart people were saying content would become free, nobody would ever pay for digital content. So, but anyway, we heard that, but we kept going. We thought that could be the case. So maybe we were saying maybe we could become a free education platform and we could get some advertising revenues. But then the criticism was learning will never have that much traffic, so that advertising becomes a viable market. The odds were kind of against us, but eventually we launched the product. We got some traction early on. It was all dummy traction. It wasn't real traction. It was just that we crawled a bunch of open courseware websites, put it up on Udemy, so Udemy looked like a site which had some courses, and we got some SEO traffic and some PR traffic, just to fake some usage. But we had some users, they knew that it wasn't original Udemy content, but we made the experience of taking a course better than the open courseware websites. So it was still useful for some people. So eventually we raised money. I think we got our first angel funding because from Keith Rebua, which is one of the top Silicon Valley angel investors. He said it was, I think, our third conversation with him. Each time he had enjoyed our product. He liked the fact that we were really passionate about it, but he had very smart criticism about why this wouldn't work. And the final times he said, you know what, just fuck it, I'm just putting 50K. This is not gonna work, but I'm guessing you'll make the right pivot, and you may be able to find the right model. And he had just 3 of his companies had just liquidated, so he had got a lot of money, so it was kind of lucky time. And then once you get your first investors, it's usually very easy to close a full round. So we raised $1 million pretty quickly once there was one investor. So going from 0 to 1 is very, very hard if you're raising angel investment. 1 to N is pretty easy. We could talk about the psychology of why that is later. Anyway, so we got $1 million funding, and we were able to go full time. We started getting some real traction, some real use case. The traffic was always pretty small. Even right now, Udemy, we are worth 9 digits numbers, but still the traffic is not a Snapchat traffic, right? It's relatively small, but there's some real use case of people taking courses, changing their lives, finding jobs. So we have created a new job, which is teaching online. So there are really important values. Our value is pretty high. Anyway, so we raised $1 million the first year. 1 year after that, we raised $3 million of Series A. And then 1 year later, it was $12 million. Around the beginning of last year, we raised another $32 million. So the total money raised is $48 million today. We have 4 million students. 25% of them are paying for courses. So to the surprise of most of our early investors, people are really, indeed paying for content. And our insight was that people weren't paying for motivational bullshit content like this one, right? So this is bullshit motivational content. This is meant to be freely available. But if you give them really technical advice, our first paid course was called Raising Money for Startups. I could still suggest you to buy it from Udemy, so $19. So it was, okay, this is the pitch deck you send. This is the intro email. This is how you close the legal. So it was really technical. So our kind of big insight was that people were indeed paying for technical content, and technical content wasn't fun to produce. You still have a kind of exclusive access to content that other people weren't just doing for free. But eventually, right now, as I said, like we have $48 million funding, roughly 15,000 instructors have courses on the website. Some of our instructors made more than $1 million. I think our top instructors made $5 million so far. But there are other instructors who are making like $300,000-400,000 grand per year. And every month we are sending 6,000 checks, meaning like 6,000 people are making some income from Udemy every month. I think this is one thing I'm proud of. We created a job which didn't exist before. Teaching online like is a kind of freelance job right now. Like I think like because of Udemy. So those are like, as I said, now the company is going well, but I want to kind of talk about more like early days. I know a lot of you guys are going to pitch ideas, so I want to kind of give a few kind of technical advice there. And I want to focus on like things that are very like counterintuitive mistakes. Just mistakes that I'm guessing 70% of the audience is like doing today. First of all, like one thing you have to realize, most of the successful companies, like when they're in the early stage, they weren't the best pitchers. They weren't the best fundraisers. So being a very good fundraiser and being a good startup like founder doesn't necessarily like equate to the same thing. If you are a good business person, like good salesperson, you are expected to be good at pitching. But if you are two engineers, people expect you to be like average at pitching. So like, don't try to be perfect about everything. And most of the successful companies like are not successful because they are amazing about everything around creating startups. They are usually amazing about one thing, and they're like pretty bad at it. They like suck at a lot of other things, and that doesn't matter because like eventually you become successful. So and investors, especially good investors, are like looking for that. They're not looking for this guy is like a well-rounded person on like everything about starting a company. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for just this one like interesting thing about you that will make you successful while everybody else is failing. And all this advice I'm gonna give, just so you guys like understand, is advice for good investors. So there are a lot of bad investors. When you like pitch them, they will like ask bad questions. They will like give you like bad critics. Like this is true. Just like know that not every feedback you get from investors is true. Even if it's the best investor in the world, like it's still there's a good chance that it's not going to be true. So you should realize like I'm really focusing on like the best investor who kind of will pick the right thing. So first of all, what investors are looking for is not that you are very likely to be successful. It's not what they're looking for. What they're looking for is most likely you will not be successful. But if you become successful, that's going to be a massive company. That's what they're looking for. This is counterintuitive, but like don't try to like close all the holes. Like if you were pitching Uber, I could bring out like 50 reasons why Uber would fail, but that's not like what investors care. Investors care about if somehow you close all those like 50 holes, it would become a like $10 billion company. And Uber is that. Like most people thought it was a terrible idea. Few investors thought it was probably a terrible idea. But if not, it would be like multi-billion dollar idea. This is what investors are looking for. And what they want to see is an opportunity. So I think the traditional pitch advice is like start with the right problem, like right solution, like they're kind of like structurally correct. But what you want the investors to see is that like there's an opportunity here, like they will make money because now they saw something that other people probably will not see. So like an opportunity is really interesting because most of the like boring startup pitches like still have a pretty solid problem that they're trying to solve. They have a relatively like reasonable solution idea. It's just not interesting. So the opportunity is something like this. Like maybe this thing wasn't possible before, and like because of the recent trends in technology, it's all of a sudden it became possible. Or maybe like there is something that most people are not seeing. So when I was pitching, for example, my big kind of edge was like I was saying the problem in education is an access problem. It's not a quality problem. Everybody was focusing on creating this super adaptive, like fancy learning environments, which were super hard to build. So they were only targeting a very small audience. I was saying, you know what, like majority of the people in the world don't have access to pretty much anything for learning. So let's just like make a scalable environment so we could distribute a lot of different courses relatively easily to the right audience. So we didn't over care about the platform to teach. We care about like, okay, making this a sustainable thing around the world. And my personal side was coming from like Turkey, like seeing like a different part of the coin that investors were not seeing, because 100% of the investors in Silicon Valley are coming from elite universities. They're coming from usually wealthy backgrounds. So I was able to say like, you guys now like you are seeing only like 0.1% of the world. Like I saw the other 99%. So Like another thing could be like, maybe this was possible on web, but now like if you move to mobile, there's an interesting thing. Maybe you have this like super unique insight that other people are ignoring. Maybe this is a really boring business, and you could even say like this is an amazing business, which is so boring that no entrepreneur is tackling it. And I'm like gonna just like take the hard work, tackle it, and become successful. You know what? Like this pitch really works out, by the way. Like amazing pitch. Like Stripe, the payments company, like nobody was tackling the boring payment problem. And I just saw a company like 3 days ago. They are like putting teachers who are not working, like substitute teachers. They've made the platform to better places substitute teachers when there's room. So if a teacher has to go for like a 10-day vacation, they need to find a substitute teacher. There are a lot of substitute teachers. Like they made a platform which makes that process more efficient. They are making like 100 million revenue right now from like 3 years, from 0 to 100 million. Like it's so boring. Like I had never heard about anybody who's tackling something even remotely close to this thing. These guys are tackling it. They put all the like 2 years of work to do this. Like they went through the boring sales process and they became successful. This is the thing. Like the investors want to see something that's kind of different about the situation. So it's like a gold. There's a gold mine there that most people are missing. That's what they want to feel, and they want to feel like if they miss your product, like company, like you'll still become successful, and they will just miss it. Right? That's what they want to get. So what they don't want to get is like if I put money, they may become successful. This is opposite of what they want to get. Like, and this is what most investors are looking for, saying, "Oh, we are not very successful yet because we don't have enough money. So if you give us money, like we may become successful." That's not what they are trying to write here. So again, like a few more kind of very obvious mistakes. One about like business models. Usually they don't matter that much. The only time when it matters is if your business needs profitable paid acquisition for growing, then business models like are important. And one mistake that most people are doing is like having 5 different business models. Like saying, I'm gonna, like if it's Udemy, like we are gonna sell paid courses, we are also gonna do advertising, and we are gonna do some lead generation, and we'll have like a premium company product which we'll sell for. So that's usually like sounds terrible, especially in the early days. You should have just like one business model. For us, it was like we are gonna sell courses. And our competitors that you probably know, like Coursera, Udacity, they all wanted to come up with this like super smart, intelligent business models like, oh, people are gonna take courses, and some of them will be amazing. Then we'll be actually helping companies to hire from people, from best students, and they will give us a referral fee. They were thinking this was a super smart business model, and even some investors bought this. But it's terrible. Like if your business model takes like 10 minutes to describe, like it's a terrible business model. Most business models are super straight. Like I give you something, I give you Apple, you give me money. So this is like the most basic one. Maybe it could be 2 steps. Maybe like I'm letting somebody else sell Apple and I'm taking a cut from it. But the more complicated it is, like the less likely it's gonna work. Like ideally, there should be one stupid business model. So don't complicate it. Just find a lot of creativity in your main business, but not in how you make money. Another kind of just small detail, like relative numbers matter more than absolute numbers. How many users you have, how much traffic you get is like not very interesting. What's more interesting is like how much are you growing week over week. So if you are in a very early like pre-funding stage, you should be growing at least 10% per week. Otherwise, your growth is like way too small to be really important. So things like how much money are you making per user, how much money are you making per active user? Like these kind of relative numbers are a lot more interesting because they usually cause kind of smart insights. Like one thing we were pitching early days was we were making $5 per MAU. Every time like somebody's active in a day, we make $5. And the same number, if you can look at for Zynga, was like around 300 times less than us. And the nice thing with this kind of relative numbers is like you can compare a large company with a small company and create some like interesting insights. You could say like what we have is so different that we are making like 10 times more money than Google around this particular use case. That might be kind of an opportunity that the investor wants to see. And the other thing you should realize is like a lot of business development deals, contracts, those things usually don't work, especially when you are small. You should really care about like 2 things. So you should spend your time on absolutely 2 things while going from idea to product, building your product, building an amazing product, and talking to your customers. Everything else, like you have to kind of cut it off. Like going to this event, like other stuff, reading investment books, just cut it off, try to like build an amazing product. Everything else will become a waste of time. And when you are raising money, then you have to raise money for a while. But then you turn on fundraising, Ideally, you finish it and then you just turn it off and go back to talking to users and building products. One thing about like building products is I have been doing the talking at home in the last 4 years, I think once every year. I had the same like quote, like if you are not embarrassed from your first product, you'll launch it too late. That's kind of changing a little bit. The expectation from the first product has dramatically increased in the last few years because a lot of like even early stage like 2 people companies have decent looking products. Design has been a lot easier than it was before. Deploying is easier. And like there's a lot of kind of focus on minimalism. So people learn that they have to start with a very minimal product, which is supposed to work better. So the bar has gone up. Like so right now, even if you are early stage pre-funding, people are looking for a polished product, unfortunately. Like this is somewhat unfortunate. They're not looking for a stuffed product, which all the features and like bells and whistles, they are not looking for, but they're looking for an elegant solution to the core problem. As I said, this is just a matter of barrier going up. Your competitors are doing good jobs, so you have to kind of catch up with that. Another thing which is specifically important for this audience, low competition in a small market doesn't pitch well. Meaning, like a lot of people say, okay, US has a huge market, it's super competitive, but this is a small place, there are not a lot of competitors, we'll actually become the winner you'll become the big fish in this small bucket. That doesn't usually work. You still want a large bucket. Because one thing that you cannot easily change, and which is really important, is total addressable market. Like if everything works perfectly and if you just keep expanding your product, how much can you expand? And total addressable market is not market size. Market size is in your current business line, how much money can you make? Total addressable market is kind of like the parent of that. For us, like that's education, or online education, let's say, right? Because you'll never do physical. But anything in online education you can consider as total addressable market. So even if our casual education market wasn't large enough, we could always pivot into corporate education where there was a lot more money. So it was like in our total address, but at least like education, online education was large enough market. If you have a pretty like tight kind of boundary around what you could do, and that boundary is pretty small, that's going to be a problem. And it's especially important for countries like Turkey, where a lot of the businesses have very small market sizes, like total addressable markets. So it usually is not like large enough to create a business. So ideally, you pick a market which is already larger. So if you take a company which is, let's say you take $100 million company in the United States and think about, okay, I'm going to do something like this in Turkey, that's probably going to be a too small market. You have to like, even if you are going to build a company which is comparable to a Silicon Valley company, pick one that's at least like worth $1 billion. Anything smaller than that is going to, like, even Udemy in Turkish will be too small, like, because even for Udemy, our like number one problem, we had a board meeting 3 days ago. Still, the number one problem is like how large is casual education market. Like we think it's maybe like $5-6 billion. So it's actually not that big. If this was $100 billion, I wouldn't be worried. But that's still something I'm worried about. So if you do like it in Turkey, it's going to be just way too small. Yeah, I think these are some of the kind of most kind of common mistakes I see there. I had more notes, but let's switch to the Q&A mode. I think there's going to be a more interesting conversation.